Good evening, everybody. Yes, I'm down here. I'm the chief fusser about talking from down here, but I am not talking to you all tonight. I'm talking to them, okay? Tonight's lesson is specifically targeted to the youth group. It is going to be a very difficult lesson for me. I'm going to try to get through it. I'm ringing back. I'm too hot. I love you guys. Thank you. You don't love me anymore?
I love you very much.
Are you sure? You may not after tonight. Our group, it has a division in it. Yeah. Our youth group has a division in it. We all agree on that? You're not the first youth group to have a division. Mine did too. Okay? What we've got to do is figure out how to fix it. Your youth group experience, the years that you spend in it, should be some of the best memories of your life. And for a lot of you, it is. But for some of you, it's not. Some of you have been picked on. Some of you are picker-owners. Some of you have had some really tough times and no one's cared. We can't have that. You've heard it said that that you all are the future of the church. That's not true. You're the church today. And if you can't work out your issues right now, what are you going to do when you are the leaders in the church? Now, I'm not telling you that you have to be able to fix everything, but you've got to work at it. You've got to forgive. Some of you have just stood by and watched things happen instead of trying to correct it. My youth group that I was in was a spectacular experience. We had probably one of the best youth groups this congregation's ever had. There were 5 of us that were strong leaders. We helped the rest of the group, but we didn't start out that way. When I entered the youth group in the 9th grade. That was when our youth group started. Shortly after that, the decision was made to include junior high, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. That was a bone of contention. It was ugly. And if you don't believe me, ask Casey Parker, because she became my focus on keeping that age group out of the youth group. She was the voice of the junior high. I was the voice of the high school. And me and her could go at it. Okay? I am not kidding. There was a point in her life that she hated me, and I hated her back. I'm telling you the truth. I mean, between the two of us, we had sides drawn out. And my brother was on her side because he's her age. Okay? I was trying to keep him out too. The subject I want to talk about, I've not talked about before in the 30-plus years since it's happened. And we're going to laugh a little bit, and I'm probably going to cry some. But back around 1984 or so, 83, we had a group of men that watched over our youth group because we didn't have a paid full-time youth minister at that time. Eddie was the primary. This cool cat right here. Do you know how hard I had to work to find a picture from the 80s? Eddie was tasked with herding us cats around all the time. He took us places. McKnight helped him out some. Gary Brown helped out. Bob Trousdale helped out. But Eddie pretty much was the one that had to ride herd on us. It was an uphill fight. Because I'm going to mention some names that I want you to remember, because I'm going to talk about later. There was a young man named Chad Pruka, who was a one-man disaster. Chris Parks, who was quiet and sneaky. Casey Parker, who was loud all the time. But I'll get to that. We needed a full-time youth minister because we were just wearing poor old Ed Slick. So we started interviews. And several of them that we had, they were not even memorable. But we went to Ed's house one night, and this guy came in. He was 6'6". His name was Raymond. And he was that tall. Back then, he was this tall. He was about this big around. And his wife, Kim, was about 5 foot tall. And she had 2 kids. Or they had 2 kids together. They had a boy and a girl. When Eric came to try out, I thought Raymond was back. I mean, Eric reminds me so much of Raymond in so many different ways, other than being 6 foot tall. Raymond was a full-bore, overgrown kid, okay? That's what it come down to. And for us, it was cool because he had a driver's license that could take us places. He took us to play softball. We played softball almost all summer, pretty much at least once or twice a month, every month. Any of y'all know this guy? Oh, that's me. This was one of our excursions we went on. Do you see what I'm doing? It's about 100 feet from that edge to the ground. Raymond took us rappelling. Do you see any harnesses or anything? There's 2 ropes. One's a safety rope that is tied to a rock, and it stops about 5 feet above the ground, and if you fall, well, it'll catch you. And the other rope is the one that's wrapped around you, and he goes, you just let go a little bit, and that's how you back down. Oh, yeah, in a hurry. You see the gloves? That's for rope burns, because when you go fast, when you're a fat boy like me, you can pick up speed in a hurry. Gravity works. But I have a helmet on. I have another picture just like this of Barney Lee Mowdy that's in the same position right before he went over the edge too. One time. All it took, one time. I learned. Don't do that. But then there's this guy. What's that on his head? Y'all see that? It was on one of our softball expeditions that we were playing one night after worship service. We were at the Range Line Ballpark up here. You know, the one you can't go to and play on anymore? We were playing softball. David Boren was playing with us that night. And there was a ball hit, and it was a pop-up, and David was right there close, and he caught that ball, and Bob is running from third base to home, and he is going. In Bob's younger days, in the 80s, that man could run, and he was going full tilt. And David turned around, never saw Bob, turned around and threw that ball as hard as he could, and about that far away from his hand was Bob's head. 2 things happened simultaneously. That ball went 130 feet up there. I mean, Bob went flat on his back, dead stop. And for about 2 ticks of the clock, everybody's like, and then everybody run in, Bob, are you okay? And at the same time, the ball's coming. Add insult to injury, the ball fall on him. Bob had a spot the size of that softball on his forehead, and where his hair stops now is where his hair was after that. That might not be all true, but it's real close, isn't it, Bob? Bob got up, and he goes, I'm okay. No, this way's okay. He wouldn't go to the doctor, but he sat on the bench for about 5 minutes, and he was back up playing. That man's tough. Remember that if you're going to hit him with something, make it harder than a softball. Raymond took us roller skating. He took us bowling. He took us to haunted trails. He took us to youth retreats. He took us camping. He took us on a youth retreat once after Casey and I collaborated a little bit, we decided it was Sherman, Texas. And this particular weekend that we went, we were studying Solomon. And everything is meaningless to Solomon. So we could not take any electronics. Okay, now, electronics in the 80s meant we couldn't take our Walkman or a watch. Because this didn't exist. Nobody had cell phones. Okay, so, and Casey melted down over giving up her watch. Correct? I mean, she flipped out. So we go on this trip. Barney and I are sharing one of the bunks. Well, we go exploring, much like boys tend to do. We come across a cabin in the woods that may or may not have been locked before we entered it. We found a stash of candy and soda pop and all kinds of stuff in there. I mean, it was their concession stand in the middle of the camp. Our ethics kicked in, and we said, well, we better leave this alone. So the door may or may not have got locked when we left. Well, as we were walking off, here comes Chad Pruka and Chris Parks. What's in there? Nothing. Several hours later, we start seeing the other kids. They've got those M&Ms. Okay, back then, there were two kinds of M&Ms. It was chocolate and peanut. So it wasn't hard to figure out where they came from. They had the M&Ms. Some of them even had soda pops. This did not escape Raymond's attention. He noticed it too. He asked where the stuff came from, covertly, found out, okay. He calls us all in that evening. Now remember, no watches, no cell phones, no electricity to speak of. We had a little bit. He would allow the light to be on in the cabin when we ate, but it was candlelight. We were roughing it. Calls us all together because it was getting dark outside. He says, real serious. He says, it's been one of those days, and it's come to my attention that some of y'all been eating candy that was give to you. Of course, everybody's like, not me. He says, well, I have a little bit of news for you. The candy that was in there was rat bait. It's poisoned because the camp has a problem with varmints, rats, possums, whatnot. And it's a 6-hour poison. And at 6 hours is when it kicks in. And Raymond's just dead serious. And he says, it's been about 5 hours and 45 minutes. And we're out here in the woods, and we can't call. So y'all need to just stay right here in this room. About that time, there were several girls started crying. A couple of the boys were worried, and Chad Pruka goes, I'm sorry, I've killed all of you. Raymond goes, mm-hmm. We did stuff like that. Now, those are memories that I have from my youth group, and that's just some highlights. We started something. Okay, we had what was called 5 o'clock class. We met every Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock. When Eddie was doing the class, it was fair attendance. He had 10, 12, 15 show up. 5 o'clock class, he'd do a devotional, we'd sing, we'd go into worship. When Raymond took over, it took him a month or two, but 5 o'clock class pretty much became mandatory. You were to be at it. He started something called the ritual. In the ritual, when we come into 5 o'clock class, we pulled all our chairs around in a circle, every one of us, and we all sat down. And the first thing we'd do when class started, we'd hold each other's hands. We'd turn to the right. You had to look the person next to you in the eye, and you had to tell them you love them. You had to call them by name. You had to say, I would have to say, Mackenzie, I love you. And she would turn to her right and tell the person next to her, and we went all around the circle. So it'd come back to the person that started it, and then we went to the left and did the same thing. Every time we did the ritual. Then we would have a short devotional, and then the next part of the ritual was we would go around the circle, and each person was allowed to say whatever they wanted to say. If they'd had a good week at school, we talked about it. If they were having trouble with, they were fighting with their parents, they got grounded, something, whatever. If we were fighting, I can't tell you how many times fights got resolved during that time. Usually wound up in the center, everybody hugging, worked it out. We were being taught what it meant to love each other. When Jesus was asked what the most important law, what's the main commandment, it was love God and love each other. Pretty simple, right? Simple to say, a lot harder to do. We had a young man in our youth group that was very, very hard to love. His name was Mitch. Mitch had absolutely the most explosive temper of any individual I've ever seen. He was roughly 2 years younger than me. He struggled, his entire life was a struggle in one form or another. He had problems at home. He had problems at school. Generally, his time talk in the ritual was telling us what he got suspended for that week and who he got in a fight with. And he always had bruises on him. Sometimes they were on his face. Usually they were on his arms. He was always angry. Always angry. That wasn't the right button, was it? This is him right here. This is one of 2 pictures that I was able to find of him. You see his face? What's everybody else doing? Laughing. Not Mitch. Mitch did not smile, ever. He did not smile. The other picture I found of him, this is him right here. This is Pruka, by the way. But that's as close to a smile as he would ever get. Mitch had problems, and we didn't help him a lot of the time. If there was an opportunity to pick on him, sometimes we'd take it. And we shouldn't have, but we did. And I'm not proud of that. I'm just telling you that I'm standing here confessing about this, okay? We had the opportunity to go to some of the members' congregation, the Prukas. Chad's parents had a cabin at the lake, and they let us go one weekend down there to go on a camping trip. We found out Wednesday prior to leaving that Mitch was going to go, that his parents had agreed to let him go. So I got with the other kids that I knew were going, and I said, look, this weekend is going to be horrible if Mitch has a blow up. Because when he'd blow up, it would last for a while. And I said, we have got to do everything we can to keep him from having to come apart. Because you never knew what would set him off. And I told the younger guys, I said, do not pick on him for any reason. He got to bring his fishing pole. Tracy and Andy Cook and Mitch had plans to go fish. Okay, that seemed to make him happy. We're going to let him alone. We spent all day. We went down Friday morning, and we spent all day swimming, chasing each other around, just having a good time. I mean, we had fun. Mitch played. He never had an incident. No one ever did anything to provoke him. He had what we thought was a decent day. We're like, whew, we made it through. That night around the campfire, we had the ritual. We did our love yous to each other. We started around the campfire talking about, what had gone on that week. This is where things start getting tough. Mitch talked about that day. And it being the greatest day of his life. He was happy. No one had picked on him. He didn't get in any fights. He talked about this stuff like it was new to him. And he smiled. And it was like, did he drink too much lake water or what? I mean, really, this was so out of character. Okay. So we finished the ritual that night, and hugs all around, and Mitch, it's great, and we go back, and we are going to camp out on the back porch. Boys had to sleep outside. We had to be on sleeping bags or whatever on the back porch. The girls were in the house with Kim. Door was shut. Pruka brings water balloons to where we're sleeping. He starts chucking water balloons around back there. Now, it's hot, and there's fans. We have box fans set up. So he throws one, and Mitch catches it and turns around to throw it because he's playing too, and he throws it at me, and, of course, I duck, and he hits a box fan, and it knocks it over, and the water goes all in it, and it's about the end of the world. And you can just see the change in Mitch's face, that it's fixing to happen. Because he's messed something up, and he knows he's going to get beat for it, and and I'm like, oh, it's okay. Hang on just a minute. And I get over and I unplug it, and I said, it's okay. It's just a fan, okay. And he calmed down, and all was well, and I threw Pruka out the back door. No more water balloons. Stop it. We go to bed. Next morning, my brother thinks it's a good idea to get up at the crack of dawn to go fishing. So him and Andy and Mitch, they're up, and they're making noise. I'm like, y'all need to shut up. It's been a long night. Out they go. Boy, they go traipsing off, all three of them, and they are in a line. Fishing poles over their shoulder. Off they go. Okay, I'm going back to sleep. It's about 10 minutes. And here comes Tracy. Running. My fat little brother is running. That means either a bear's after him or something really bad has happened. As he comes up on the porch, Pruka was the one laying by the door. Pruka goes, what's wrong? And he says, Mitch fell in the lake. And he was through the door. He was in the house about 15, 20 seconds. And by this time, I'm kind of waking up. What's going on? Because I didn't hear all of what he told Pruka. I just heard Mitch, lake. Here comes Raymond. And this is slow motion, y'all. Raymond's 6'6", so when he runs, he takes like a 10-foot stride. And he is midair, and he turns and looks at me on the way by, and he goes, get everybody up. Everybody stays together. Wait for me to come back. What is going on? But okay. Just the tone, I knew something was up. They're gone for a little while, and I'm going to switch now, and I'm going to tell you what Tracy saw. Tracy runs behind Mitch back down to the water, they were walking along the edge of the bank and in single file, and as they were walking, Tracy said it looked like Mitch tripped, and he fell down and rolled into the water. And they were in a spot where one of those necks that goes like this. Tracy and Andy went in after him. Both of them were about 5'6" at that time. And when they got water this deep, it was still dropping off, and they hadn't found him, so Tracy got out and come back. Mitch had stayed in the water Andy had stayed in the water trying to find Mitch. Raymond gets down there, and he gets in the water. It was up to the bottom of his chin, and he felt Mitch with his foot. And he dove down and got him, and they pulled him out on the bank, and they started CPR. And there were 2 nurses and their husbands walking by that Raymond said, "Can you help me?" And they said no. This was 1984, and whatever the law was, they said if they started, they could not stop rendering aid until emergency vehicles got there, and they refused to help. Raymond worked on Mitch for probably 5 minutes, left Tracy and Andy there, and he comes back to the house, calls an ambulance, and then runs back down there and starts CPR again. Tells me when the ambulance gets there, point them our way. It took roughly 30 minutes for the ambulance to get there, and it felt like 30 hours. It was the longest 30 minutes I've ever spent. We didn't know what had happened. We didn't know if Raymond had him back up or what. The ambulance got there. The rest of us had gotten packed up. They loaded Mitch up, and they took him to the nearest hospital. I guess it was Eufaula, and then they met a flight of him to Oklahoma City, to Children's. Somewhere along the line, somebody called Eddie, and he came and got us. I wore him out all the way home. What's going on? Is he going to be okay? Remember, we didn't have these. Closest thing we had was a CB, and it didn't reach Oklahoma City from down at Eufaula. We had no idea what was going on. We were concerned for Mitch. We were concerned for Raymond because this was new. We'd never had a youth minister have anybody get hurt, and Mitch was hurt. We all came to worship service the next morning wanting news of what happened. That was when we were told that Mitch's parents had unplugged the machine because he was dead. They had no brain activity, and he was gone. And there was nothing they could do. Now, I just told you that he had had the greatest day of his life. Was that an accident? I don't know. We knew Mitch was gone. Raymond got up that Sunday morning to talk to the congregation and address the situation and what had happened and what he knew and what had gone on. And you kids hear things just like we did. There were some people that blamed Raymond for it happening, that we shouldn't have been there, that there was nothing he could do, the whole gamut. His parents asked the young men in the youth group to be pallbearers, and 8 of us, for the first time in our lives, carried out a casket. We found out that they had performed an autopsy because there was about a week between his death and the funeral. And Mitch didn't drown. There was no water in his lungs. What we found out was that he had had a massive aneurysm, and the doctor said that the stumble that Tracy saw he was dead right then. He never took another breath. He never drew water in his lungs. He never felt anything. It was just like turning out a light switch. And he was gone. That was a wake-up call to all of us. Because when I was your age, I was bulletproof. When I was his age, I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. But Mitch proved that we weren't. Our group spent the next year becoming like this after that. And as hard as we tried, Raymond never recovered. Raymond made it through that group that experienced that was there. He made it to the last one of us graduated. And then he was done. And he was never right after that. He blamed himself even to today. I'm sure he still feels responsible that Mitch passed away on his watch. And there was nothing he could do about it. But it was what it was. You don't know what opportunity you have. You don't know when today is the last day you're going to see the person sitting next to you. I held hands with Mitch on Friday night, told him I loved him. And Saturday he was gone. Just like that. Almost lost you, and JR, just like that. What would that do to your group? Don't find out. Make your group whole again. Whatever is going on, with whoever is going on, fix it. The adults in the congregation here are going to tell you the same thing. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's not easy to forgive. But we have to. As you sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world. And for their sake I consecrate myself, that they may also be sanctified in truth. I do not ask for these only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, that they may also be one in us, so that the world may believe that you sent me. After that time, if you picked on somebody in our youth group, you were picking on the entire group. It's just how it was. I mean, it changed. If somehow you can figure out how to change and get that, and I don't know what the answer is, okay? For us, Raymond made it happen. I really thought that when we hired Eric, that it was going to happen in our group. It didn't. Eric got pulled up to the big leagues, and he did not get to finish here. I think Eric could do it, but he's not had the opportunity. In our group, when we had the feud, I finally grew up enough to realize that everybody needed to be included in the group. That it took even the younger kids to make the group work. Us older kids had to teach the younger kids. The younger kids brought a different kind of energy. It was almost like a rabid squirrel running around in the room. But it was needed. And once Casey and I made peace, There isn't a thing in the world that I wouldn't do for her today or that she wouldn't do for me. And back then, it became that way. It took us a while. You can't change it overnight, but it can change. Jan even likes me again. You think I'm kidding? Ask Jan. When I was a teenager, she did not like me at all. And deservedly so. But I want you to, if you don't take away anything else, I want you to take away that this congregation, that every one of these people in this room love you all and want nothing but the best for you. They want you to get along. They want you to have fun. They want you to grow in the Lord. I had a spectacular youth group experience. I cannot go back and change the fact that CJ did not. CJ almost quit coming to church over his youth group experience. So when I talk about this, I'm talking about it from both sides because I've seen both ways. I love you all. I'm not picking on you at all. And anything I can do to help you out, come find me, and I'll do it. And if you don't feel comfortable talking to me, go talk to Johnny. Go talk to Bob. Go talk to Daryl. Talk to Max. Talk to anyone. If Alma was here, I'd tell you to talk to her. Whoever you feel comfortable with. The older people in this congregation have been through it. We've all done it. You may have some unique circumstances, but we've all been where you're at. And we all survived, mostly. And we all come out better for it. You will too. You're a great, great group of kids. Make your group whole. Please. He said so. Not just me. And I'm going to quit right there because they're getting ready to ring the bell. Thank you all, and we all love you.
I don't have any idea what to say. I'll be real honest with you guys. Those of you who heard him, I haven't been around long enough to be able to follow that up and really say what I need to say in like a way that I can prepare for it. But I'm going to do what I tried. What you heard tonight was heartbreaking for a few of us. I don't know about you guys, but for me, to see him cry is one of the hardest things for me to watch. It always makes me sit here and I got the same thing going on that he does. To lose someone at such a young age is traumatic. It's heartbreaking. It's almost disgusting to think about. It is disgusting to think about. And we almost had that happen here. It got very real to me when I flipped my car. I did not realize up until that point how short life is. And I don't know about Jake, and I don't know about JR, and I don't know about Chance. But that was my wake-up call. That was my moment to look at my life, and I did talk with Jake about this. That was my moment to look at my life and realize that something needed to be changed. I could not at that point, looking back when I was thinking about it, I cannot say that I would have gone to heaven. If I'm real with myself, I don't have that security. I could not look at my life, look at the things I've done, the people I've hurt, the things that I've done to hurt God, and know that I was going to heaven. I don't know if you guys realize how serious that is. It's hard to think about. Those of us who did go, think about us now. Who's still coming here? Me and Jake are still coming here. JR. How many of you guys talk to JR? Joey does. I know Joey does. Joey is an encouragement to JR. More than I am. I haven't talked to JR, realistically had a conversation with him in about a month. I used to call him my friend. I still do, and I'd like to think so. But who encourages him? Do you guys expect only one person to encourage him? Because if I'm honest, that's what I've been doing. I've been relying on Joey to do all of it. I haven't been keeping up with him. I don't text him, tell him to come to church. He texts me, and I ignore it sometimes. And I don't say these things to you guys to make you feel bad. I don't say them so that you'll look at yourself and say, I'm going to hell now because I haven't done any of this. But that was our wake-up call. Little side note. After I had gotten my wreck, my parents were less than 3 or 4 minutes away from me. When I called them, they were driving under the bridge that I wrecked over. That's God working. That's what that is. You guys can make any arguments you want. That's God working. They live in Bethel. That would have been a 30-minute drive of my parents being scared and afraid that I was hurt. That would have been an ambulance cost. That would have been me not knowing what to do. That is God working. Just a little side note. I don't know if you guys thought about that, but I do. I say these things to you guys so that you guys can have the same realization that I have had. I know where I've done wrong. I know where I've messed up in the youth group. These little guys, I call them little, y'all aren't going to be that little for that much longer. Colton, aren't you in 9th grade now? I remember like it was yesterday where I was in 6th grade, and Colton was like in 1st grade. Sure felt like it to me. And I really hope you guys haven't gone through the same things that I had. When I was in the youth group, the older guys bullied me, and I did not associate with the youth group until I was in about 8th grade. And the only reason I did is because Kaylee told me to, and I was going to go with her. You guys don't realize the impact you can have on each other. Colton, you come to stuff. Adam, you come to stuff. Who else is sitting in here that they don't come to stuff? I haven't been active this summer. I've had a job. I haven't been able to come to anything. And I'm losing time day after day. I'm running out of time to be with you guys. It's not going to be much longer. I'm going to be gone in a year. Katie's going to be gone in a year. Joey's going to be gone in a year. Mitchell's going to be gone in a year. Are you thinking about that, though? What am I leaving behind for you guys to deal with? What am I leaving behind for Jake to look at and say, well, the guys before me, they didn't do anything, so why am I going to do anything? It can't be up to just one person, though. Chris, he's our youth minister. He's not here. He's speaking at another place. Really wish he would have heard all this. But we rely on him for a lot of stuff. We rely on him to invite everyone. I know I do. There's only one person I consistently invite to church now. And why do we rely on him to do everything? And we can't just rely on the kids either. You parents, you're just as much to blame for your kids not doing anything. We're raised by you guys. It's not just our fault. The world today, we're influenced by them, but you guys have a more powerful impact. And it's you guys' job just as much as it's ours to encourage us to invite our friends to church, to bring this closer to Christ, to get along with each other. I don't get along with everyone in a youth group. That's just how it is. But that doesn't mean I don't have to talk to them. That doesn't mean I have to be mean to them. That doesn't mean I have to not care about them. I don't have the right idea of what to do. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't know what to do about our youth group. I don't know how to change it. I've got 1 year left. I don't know that I'm going to change it. I don't know that I have the time, the effort, the drive to do it. At this point, I'm going to be on my own in a year or two. Who am I going to have with me? How many of you guys are going to be on your own? And how many of you guys are going to encourage me when I'm gone? How many of you guys are encouraging the people that are gone now? We all hear the statistic. 2 out of every 10 people, 1 out of every 5 that are in the youth group leave after high school. I know there's about 5 of us that are leaving come May next year. Do you guys want to just be another statistic? Or do you guys want to make a difference? As always, we do offer an invitation. It's kind of hard to tie it into this, but if you have anything that you're struggling with, if you don't know what to do in your life, maybe coming down front isn't for you, it's kind of embarrassing. It really is. It takes a lot of a person to be able to come down and admit their sins, but if you would like to come down and talk with us or study with the elders, or if you need anything, please come forward now as we stand and sing.